This is nice. They did some sort of update on Riverside where now as soon as I hit record on the stream, it automatically starts on YouTube. Before I was having to do both and
Yeah.
like hit one, wait for it to load on YouTube and then start. And now I don't have to do that anymore. So
Well,
this
that's
is
awesome.
much easier
Technology.
on me, right?
Thank you, AI.
Thank thank you, AI. We're gonna do a little bit of a shorter one today, kind of just for scheduling purposes, but I didn't want to not do one at all. So we were thinking we'd do kind of, I can't really say rapid fire because it's not going to be a ton of things we're going to go over, but a little bit shorter, more condensed stuff that lends itself better to shorter conversation and just tidbits and tips kind of episode rather than some long. We've done a couple pushing 2 hours recently, which are super fun. But this one I think will be fun in a different kind of way. So
Yeah.
um I'm in the outside studio today. Got a cigar going this morning after I had jujitsu this morning and trained and uh had a good breakfast, and I'm like sitting out here outside with my cigar. I'm like, all right, let's freaking do this morning.
Does that like is that a point of relaxation for you, like your cigar?
Yeah,
Yeah,
big time.
that's cool. I know some people. I mean, I talk to guys that are real cigar people, and that is the answer that I look for when they're genuine. Like they really just are into cigars. They
Yep.
like the smell of them, the taste of them. They like to learn about them, and it is a relaxation. And then you've got the douchebags.
Hmm.
I'll tell you a funny story. I was with Scott Volkortson in Vegas. This is real brief, but I was in Vegas with him, and there was a there was a guy in the bar that we were at, and we were all having a pretty good time. We'd had a few beers, and I have a confrontational playfulness about myself anyway. Like it's almost a juxtaposition because when I was big, I would almost do that. I'd call everybody big guy. I'd like kind of joke about them, so like
Yeah.
it eased the tension that I'm not some asshole kind of thing. Learned that when I was bouncing. So anyway, this guy's standing over here and he's got like a foot and like it's like a 14-inch cigar. It's one of these high dollar deals. He's an
Yeah.
executive for one of Scott's brands, like one of the companies he uses. And I'm like, look at this fucking dickhead over here. Look at this small cock motherfucker over here. Got a 14-inch cigar, like talking
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
And Scott just comes over to me. He's like, man, can you just he's important. And that's where he left it.
He's up on
He's
it.
he's important. And but I was ready to go full send on him. I was waiting for him to say some shit back. But
Right. Trying to slide
it
something
was
loyal here.
oh dude, it's funny like how I love getting that reaction from people because you can always back down. If you're just joking with somebody, you can always
Oh yeah.
back down.
Oh yeah.
But the guys that get really mad, he was one of them. Like that's my job to read
Yeah.
people and understand people.
Yep.
He would have
Find
if
out
he'd
where the line
actually
is.
like caught on to what I was saying. Like he was 4 feet from me. He was just so
Yeah.
engrossed in him telling stories about himself that he couldn't hear what I was saying. But I was
That
talking
is
shit to his
hilarious.
face 4 feet away, and Scott got a little nervous, but it was funny.
That's hilarious.
But yeah,
Uh
that's cool. I don't do cigars, man.
I never
I like
like
I like blunts, but I don't like
yeah, it
cigars.
wasn't it wasn't something I mean, I think the first handful like when I got into it was in college. And it
Yeah,
was actually when I was a senior. I lived by myself my entire senior year of college, which was like nobody does that. You know what I mean? Everybody
yeah.
has multiple roommates or like, lives in a giant house with teammates and stuff. And just for whatever, there's a bunch of situations and stuff. And I was just like, you know what? I really don't want to live in a house with six guys because that was my
Sure.
pretty much only option. And I found this like little like duplexy thing that had a third unit that they had basically created in the
Yeah.
back, and it was dope. I mean, it was just like a studio thing, and it was awesome. And the guy that I rented from was great, but that was when I first like started kind of getting into them. And I'm not like some huge like
Aficionado.
yeah, like I enjoy them, and I'm to the point where I could probably tell you the difference in taste from like a really nice one from a
Hmm.
really crappy one,
Yep.
but everything in the middle, I'm like that. If you know how to like light them so you're not burning them, because
Yeah.
I mean like there's some technique to it where like if you're just gonna completely fry the end of it, it's gonna taste terrible and it's gonna
Yeah.
burn unevenly and stuff. So like as long as you know how to do that, most of them are good.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the funniest things I was going to tell you. When I was it was a little bit after college, I think. I met a guy, and
was recommended from a friend, but I found this
oh,
wouldn't
Oh, am I
back.
no, yeah, it kind of cut out for a
cut
second.
out?
Sorry, I thought I was talking. Yeah, no big deal.
Oh,
Sorry.
no worries. It had I found this page at the recommendation of a friend, and I have like no affiliation with them, even though like I would be 100% on board for a cigar sponsor on this podcast. But it's called cigar. It's literally just cigarpage.com, and I have no idea how they stay operational because they do like these bundles,
Yeah,
and they give them they sell them essentially at like wholesale prices of like legit nice ones. And so I had like they have like these different sample packs and stuff, and I bought this one a week or so ago. Um, and it was a 10 cigar pack, and it had a bunch of Olivias and a couple of other ones. And this one I'm doing right now is called Free Will, and it's got a cool like flag and skull thing on.
yeah,
And it was 10 cigars shipped for $20.
yeah. You
And
can't beat that.
so yeah, I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna do that for the rest of my life. So it's like
My bet,
it's pretty
my bet
pretty
is it's
awesome.
a mafia deal. It's somebody Cuba down in that area, Dominican, whatever. They're
Yeah.
shipping. They're stealing from a legit company, branding them, sending them to the mafia,
Very
and
well could
you're
be.
buying mob cigars.
That
That's way cooler to me. Like I would smoke
that's a
those
better
cigars
story.
on that story
Yeah.
alone, just to be
Yeah.
like, yeah, I get these from the mob. Yep, you got
100%.
it, little Joey,
I'm a
little
little
Joey.
I'm a little connected, so
Yeah.
let's watch it. All right.
Now, what I was
Um
saying when it cut away there, I met a guy in college, and like Black Rifle was pretty notorious for bringing back the pour over and like really popularizing that, and
yeah.
talking about how that's a different thing than a Keurig or whatever. And like you're talking about, there's this very specific way to light a cigar. There's a reason that the lighters are different. There's a reason that you do things different with a cigar.
Yeah.
This dude, I smoked weed with a guy, and this was just like he was a powerlifter. It was right after college. No shit, this dude pulls out like a briefcase, and he's got like the setup. And to this day, he actually made an Instagram story about this story. But I won't tell that story because it's
Yeah.
too funny and it's too long. But it was like it was precision marijuana high. Like it was to the level.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And it was like I didn't have to smoke hardly anything. It wasn't a dab, it wasn't an oil, it was just straight leaf. But the way that he did everything, he heated it up to a certain temperature. He had
Yeah.
a little buffer thing. But anyway, it's just funny
Yeah.
how like we get so like glossed over on what something good is. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
my papa loved McDonald's coffee. I mean, it's freaking brown
Yeah.
water every once in a while. Like, how do you get a pre-filled package and a pre-measured thing for water, and you can go in there and actually get like, okay, this is a decent cup of coffee from a gas station, like
Yeah.
comparable to this is black water, like just straight black water.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, I don't know, but anyway, enough of
Here,
that shit.
I'm gonna stop this real quick. All right, got it fixed.
Technical
So
difficulties,
yeah,
probably my fault.
technical difficulties. Oh, well, it's probably the fact that I'm in an outside area and there's all kinds of different stuff going on here.
The
But
common denominator in most of my failures is me. So
just most.
yeah, I'm just saying most. There's been once or twice where somebody else was at blame.
So we had a couple of topics we wanted to touch on. So we'll just kind of, I mean, I don't have any particular order that I felt we needed to go in. So the first one that I had thought of was related to books.
Yep.
If there's any that you had read recently or are currently reading, kind of what realm that's in. The reason that's on the top of my head recently, I just had um, Jack back on the show on Monday to record for the episode dropping in a couple weeks.
Yep.
And third time he's been on, he's the best. He's like just the coolest guy.
Such an
And
interesting dude.
he is, and I only I'll take whatever time I can get with him, but because he's so busy, I've been booked with him for like 2 months, and I still am only able to get half an hour with him.
Yeah.
And in that time, though, just with how fast his mind works and how fast he talks, like we can cover what I would cover in an hour with most people in 30 minutes anyways.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
that's amazing.
he's awesome to talk to. And so he sent me the new book a couple weeks back to read in prep for
Yeah, I'm
the
not on
interview.
that
So
mailing list. Me and
I'm
Jack
on
aren't tight like that.
so I'm working through it right now, and it's a freaking mammoth, man. It's like
Yeah.
560 something pages, and it's huge. But I mean, those are always like kind of my yearly. I look forward to those. I kind of
Have you read the Vince Flynn, Mitch
I've read
Rapp
a
dude?
couple of them.
I would burn through those. I went to the beach one time, and I'm not a beach guy. Like I'll get in the water for an hour and I'm out. Like
Yeah,
I don't give a fuck.
yeah.
Um, so I was like sitting on the beach, literally reading because I found them like 4 or 5 books into the series.
Okay.
I read 5 books in 5 days. You know, these are 380 to 450 page books,
Yeah, just
and you
crushing.
know, I read like a damn tortoise, but you know, they were so enthralling, like they were so
Yeah.
exciting. It was like Tom Clancy pared down, you
Mm-hmm.
know, but
Mm-hmm.
just as much juice.
Yeah.
So if you
Him
like Jack
and
Carr, Vince Flynn is an awesome. He passed away unfortunately, testicular cancer,
yeah.
but he had a finishing team that did a couple more books, and I think they just hired
Yep.
one of his guys to continue the series. So pretty
And
awesome stuff.
Vince Flynn's great. I also really like Brad Thor
Yep.
in kind of that thriller,
Hmm.
that same genre of stories. I really like I really like fiction.
Yeah.
I almost would prefer that as like leisurely reading rather than going through people's like self-help books
Yeah.
or you know
I'm
what I
not,
mean?
I say I'm not into the self help realm, but I am. Like, if, you know, there's so much fat out there, if we can trim the fat,
Yeah.
pull the bone, and we got meat, I'm all in. Like,
Yeah.
that's one of the books I was going to recommend is in that
Yeah.
realm would be Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules.
Yeah.
Now, I know he's a controversial figure for a number of reasons, but like the Bible is a controversial book. No matter who you are, there are lessons and values that you can take away from that. You know, exclude whatever you feel you need to exclude. But in Peterson's book, it really does it does a service, I think, to what a person can do themselves
Yeah.
to create an organism that is good for everything else around it.
Yeah.
Do I think that the book is flawless? No. Do I think that the book is misinterpreted, misunderstood? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think that if anybody with any reading comprehension whatsoever is looking for a place of like, man, I am out of control, I don't even know where to begin, that is a fantastic, not only starting point, reminder point, and finishing point. Like,
Yeah.
I think that the book is just really, really fantastic. I did not like his second book as much as the first.
I never read that one.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
mean,
I didn't get
and
that one.
again, listen, the first one he said he excruciatingly like went word and line by line for 10 years. You know,
Yep.
and then it's like, oh, this is a hit. We need another one. So he didn't get to do the
Yeah.
service to the second book. I think he did say he wrote it for about 8 years, but it felt a little more. It felt a little more defensive to me, like as in he had to prove a point rather than just stating a point,
Yeah.
and it felt a bit more like it felt a little bit more curt in some of the explanations, like
Sure.
because I think if you divulge too much, if you say too much, that's where they find the attack point, you know.
Yeah.
So that would be my number one for most people that I would say
Yeah.
are listeners, you know, 30 something, late 20 somethings, 40 somethings that are trying to figure it out. Like, dude, that's why it's one of my books. My life has been a series of train wrecks, my own doing, but this book is one of those things that gave me parameters that I can be like, no, there's nothing crazy about these. There's nothing exceptional about these. It's
Yeah.
just a disciplined mindset around doing good things, progressive things, and you know, just trying to build a life that is mine, not what I'm told I want. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And it's one of those ones too where a lot of the self-help books that I've read that are by guys that are in the improvement or development space. We know several of them, and like they're books that have, I mean, decent but kind of obvious things in them. I would say decent, but they're good advice, but it's nothing that nobody's heard from a million other sources already.
Right.
And and they're ones that I'm not going to go back and read those books again. Like I,
Sure.
I don't have any need to go back and read some of these again, but like with Jordan's 12 verse, like there's always something that could be, you could go back and be like, even read one of those sections, one of those rules, and it just applies differently to you this coming back, maybe 2 years later,
I think
and
that's
you
a
can go
great
back.
point too, though, man.
Yeah.
Like how we look at ourselves, how the world impacts us,
Hmm.
definitely changes because, like,
Yeah.
I tried to do the 4:30 thing, and I did it. I didn't necessarily say I improved. 5:30, 6 o'clock is a better wake for me. That's still a discipline point,
Yeah.
But it just, some of these people that get on such a point of like, I've got to motivate you and I've got to change your life and I've got to do this. It makes me wonder, like, how much fucking motivation do people need? And
Yeah.
if you need so much motivation, like, it's almost like a drug, to the point where if you see it so much, it actually has no impact. And
Yeah.
I think that's where I'm at with a lot of stuff on Instagram and whatnot. It's like, we're watching a continuous commercial.
Yeah.
It's an advertisement for me.
Hmm.
And that's a weird thing. And I heard a guy, he was an older guy, and he said something to the effect of, could you imagine your great great grandfather, coming out of a field in the 1920s, and somehow he walks into your life and he sees what you do and he sees what you value, and like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And it's like, this is what you're doing with the miracle that is the
Yeah.
human experience. Like,
Totally.
I don't know, but anyhow, it's a weird thing, and that's a good book.
One of the other things I like to do reading wise is, and we've talked about this before, I'm a big history guy. Like, I
Sure.
love reading historical nonfiction stuff, historical accounts of things. So
Hmm.
one of the ones I'm reading, like, I kind of bounce and forth. I never read like two books literally simultaneously, because
Yeah.
not very frequently, unless it's like one I'm super engrossed in, like a novel, like, some of Jack Carr's works, where I'll like just crank through it. But
Right.
most of the time I'll go back and forth and be like, I'll read some from here, some from here. And one I've got right now is a little bit shorter book, but it's about a guy named Eusebius, who was around in like the first. Well, he was around, I want to say, like third or fourth century,
Uh-huh.
but wrote extensively about the early church post
Oh, nice.
crucifixion. So he's telling the story about like the apostles' lives after Jesus was crucified, and like how the early church essentially developed and became, it was. So he's kind of like the historical, one of the prominent like historical figures from like the first couple centuries of Christianity. So like the accounts
Hmm.
and everything are like super rad to read. But I always enjoy like historicals. I've read like all of the rise and fall of Teddy Roosevelt, or not rise
Sure.
and fall, but the rise of Teddy Roosevelt.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of those, I love those like historical biographies and stuff of just dudes that were way cooler than I am hundreds and
Yeah.
thousands of years ago.
There's I was listening to a guy, and he ended up, this guy kind of highlights historical figures, and just tells kind of like unknown history or like forgotten history kind of thing. Can you imagine the lives of some of the people that no one knows about? Like some of the things, I can't remember who it was. It wasn't Bill O'Reilly. It was Glenn Beck. He had a thing about like the middleman in history, and it was like, it told stories of, this. It wasn't Thomas Jefferson at Monticello. It was some guy riding his horse through the night. It tells that guy's story. The middleman of forgotten history, and I like that stuff. I like the spider web of stories like that, and it's just another layer to the level. I mean, another layer to the level. That's the dumbest thing I've ever said. It's another layer
I knew
to
what you
the
meant.
story. It's another layer to the story,
Yeah.
that for some reason just makes me feel good. Like I like investigating things like that. I like learning. Like even when I was a kid, dude, I watched Last of the Mohicans and went straight to Encyclopedia
So
Britannica
good.
and read as much as I could about them, and then started reading off, like, for more read. And you look
Yeah.
up Iroquois
Yeah.
and Sioux and Lakota. It's like, it was a really, that's the way my brain works. Like, you get very deep on whatever I'm interested in, and yeah.
There's a
So,
lot of stuff historically that I have a very deep interest in that I don't know if I'm ready to fully dive into yet.
mm,
You know what I mean? Just because I know garbage truck just squeaking away. My
dude,
goodness.
wild times out there in Idaho, bro. Keep it down.
there are sections of history where I'm like, I know myself and I will be consumed by research and wanting to like
Mm,
continue because that's just how I am. And, you're the same when we get into something, like we get
yeah.
into something.
Yep.
And there's some of those things where I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to understand what some of the actual truths were about some of these time periods yet. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I'll get there. But there's some of those things that I'm like, one day kind of things.
What's one
Um,
thing that from history that like you just for some reason you know enough about to know that you don't want to know any more about it?
oh man, I'm gonna say like I can do, if we're talking like American history, I can chunk it up into like there are things within American history that I am very interested in knowing because I only remember what I was told. you
Sure.
know
Yeah.
I think, and I know this is for me, so this would be my answer for this, just so I have an answer, because I don't think any of us were really very told very well what happened in World War I.
Dude, funny you say this. So,
Like everybody's history ever seems to start at World War II
sure.
and not talk about what happened in the 25 years, 30 years prior to that essentially led to World War
Mhm.
II, 30 years before it happened. But the stories around what happened in that first one, I think, are vastly under taught from the proper perspectives.
Well, have you read very much about the Battle of Somme?
Not much.
That's 100,000 deaths in a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're talking about you do have some artillery, you have rifle, but there's a lot of bayonet, there's a lot of
Yeah.
hand to hand. Those fuckers were just like cut from
Hard.
cloths that no one, very few people
And
in America.
17 years old, by the way.
Yeah, that's the
Like
thing too.
17,
It's
18,
like
19 years old.
yeah, and that's the one thing that they don't equate is it's like these are boys, and they're probably scared shitless, but they're bold, they're brave. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
It's a different thing. But when I was in England, my friends Paul and Tanya, they owned a gym, Olympic gym, and I actually met them in Finland. And from meeting them at a powerlifting competition in Finland to traveling back to the UK and training at their gym and staying with them for a week, really, because I was already going to England, but I just ended up we were fast friends and it worked out. Um, but man, like some of the stuff that I don't even remember what I was talking about there. Shit, I was talking so much about their gym. Um,
With Psalm and
yeah, so
the
Paul,
young
sorry about
soldiers.
that. I just blanked because we were
Yeah.
talking about the gym. But Paul is very much into British history, and he took me to the British History Museum. And man, it's like there is so much to see and understand. And like you saw the uniforms and you saw the mustard gas and you saw all this stuff. And you look at, I don't know that war is ever fair to call civilized, but man, we were out to not just kill, we were out to maim, and we were out to the world. I won't say we, but like the combatants were out to maim and harm. Those suffocating gases and things like that. Holy shit, man! Um, that's just a really dark era because we had the advancement, but we were still so primitive in our use of those things. Like,
Yeah. Totally.
like I don't know. There's something very different about killing a man with a bayonet than with a 2 mile sniper shot. Both
Exactly.
are fucking awesome. Like that's an amazing thing. But it's two different worlds.
Well, and
So
you juxtapose that with like, you know, say what you will about rules of engagement, but in the last, I don't know, 30 years,
yeah.
what that has done to effectiveness to a degree, you know what I mean?
Oh,
And
listen,
so
that
it's
stuff is so bad. The rules of engagement, because I know guys. I mean,
mhm,
you might not know them like I know them, but you know of, and have probably shook hands with some of these
yeah.
guys
Yep.
that were in situations where clear target in scope, just waiting for approval, can't
Yep.
get approval.
Can't
Can
get
we
it.
send this up the chain? Cannot get approval. Overridden. Like, what are we doing here? And then 10 guys die.
Yep.
Like watching this guy continue his activities, 10 of our guys get killed, and then it's like, can we do something now? No, wait, it's what happened at that fucking airport, over there. Like, Jesus, man, like these politicians, I don't even want to go on that route. But
We'll save that for another one.
yeah, it's just, but yeah, back to the World War One, and there's so many other wars and battles and stuff throughout history. Like
Yeah.
some of the Spartans' other battles are
Yeah.
fascinating too from a strategy standpoint.
Right.
And I guess like this is a good pivot point so we can keep it rolling. One of the books I've been reading right now because of jujitsu, because of the general, like I go back to this book a lot when, you know, I've talked about how I feel like the world is just so at chaos. Like it's at a level that I can't even stand right now.
Yeah.
So the Book of Five Rings,
Yes.
Musashi,
Yep.
The Art of War, Sun Tzu. Those are two books that I will interchange just for simplicity of kind of an ethos after the guidelines of Peterson. You lay out a very martial approach to life. You know, don't be I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than the gardener in the war. Like that kind of mindset to understand that Musashi is so significantly for being multifaceted. Is like, what good is the swordsman if he can't write or paint or do poetry? You know,
Right.
it's just in the same way too. It's like as one man should not master only one weapon, then that weapon is the master of him. And like some of that philosophical stuff and some of that almost sounds like a fortune cookie, but the real.
Yeah.
These were the
Yeah.
guys
It
that
is
were
though.
like the real. So
Hmm.
those two would be that some for me. Just give me some sense of, okay, just remember this what you're feeling, what you're doing in your practice and your training, whatever. What you're doing is working outward, and that is going to make everything outward better too. So
Yes.
those two are probably right up
Solid.
there with the Petersons.
Solid. And you actually maybe unintentionally, maybe intentionally, had a line that was a fantastic segue into one of my other things I was wanting to bring up,
Mm,
which is getting back. We had an episode a while back talking like kind of prepping and homesteading slash gardening slash survival kind of stuff.
mm,
And around here, anyways, I'm right in the thick of getting all the garden stuff prepped. So I thought that could be a good helpful thing to go over, because I've had a couple of guests recently that are in that realm of homesteading and stuff. And so one of the questions that I I've asked a couple of these guys is a lot of people don't have a clue where to start because they think I need to, and one of the last guests I had, his name is John Moody, who's actually down in Kentucky.
mm.
And he said,
That's the sound guy.
no, he's the homesteader guy. I just had him
Oh
on the
yeah, yeah,
show
yeah.
like a
Oh
week or
yeah.
so
Okay.
ago. He's got 35 acres down there and farms, and he does conferences with Joel Salatin, who's
Mm,
another homestead guy. And but he was talking about people always want to. They'll say, I just need to get out of the city. I need to get my 5 acres, and then I can get all my farm and my garden and my animals and all this stuff going. And they don't have even a semblance of starting any of that where they currently are.
sure.
He's like, dude, you don't have anything now. You're not just going to start all of this when you get 5 acres. Like you need
Right.
to begin small and understand, how to grow a pepper plant in a pot on a windowsill,
Yeah.
before you like try to map out a 2,000 square foot garden plot where you're going to grow 40 different types of vegetables or something,
Right.
and so that's honestly like I got this is like year 6 technically, 4 years in this house, so I've kind of got things set up in a good way, but I'm still always adding stuff to this. Just last night actually built a huge like 6 foot tall arch trellis out of a cattle panel and a couple of T-posts
Oh,
to get
nice.
some like zucchinis and cucumbers to climb up that trellis
Yep.
and
Yep.
stuff. So we do. And then the other piece of advice that I get asked, like, well, what's easiest to grow? And I'm like, it doesn't really matter what's easiest, just grow what you're going to eat.
Yeah.
Because that was like the mistake that I made, was like the first couple years I just wanted to try everything, and it was stuff that I was never going to eat anyways, just because there's things I still don't, I don't like everything. So I'm like, but
Sure.
I'm going to grow a ton of stuff and be like, well, who's going to eat this?
Yeah.
And so we've, at this point, just to give like a little bit of an overview, I mean, I've got a whole raised bed that's just different varieties of tomatoes, because I do tons of salsa and spaghetti sauce out of them. Like I'm not a big
Hmm.
like tomato guy, but I'll make sauces and salsas as the day
Sure.
is long. Got a herb thing. We're gonna do a bunch of like squashes and like a little bit of a salad box going on with lettuces and that kind of stuff. And then I let Riggs, my 4 year old, almost 4 year old, is really into it. He loves like walking around and helping water and plant stuff in. So I let him pick out a whole plot that he wanted to. He gets to pick what goes in this like 6 by 8 foot plot in the
Yeah.
back, and he picked watermelons. And
Oh,
I've
sick.
never done those, so he wanted to go. So he's in charge of it. He put the seeds in the little seed starter thing, and when we're going out, he's gonna have to dig the holes to put them all in, and I'll help him. But that's gonna be his little plot of watermelons in the back. But I think it's helpful just to have this. We can talk about all of these things that I'm growing, and I still don't know far more than I will ever know. You know,
Yeah.
but the barrier for it is very small, actually. Like the barrier to
Yeah.
entry with a lot of this stuff, you can literally get like a pot and not even have to go buy a pot. You can get one that's already in a container, like of a singular herb, and grow
Yeah.
it on your kitchen windowsill.
Yeah.
Like just start with learning how things grow and what amounts of water things take, and stuff like that. So, I mean, I wanted to kind of do a little bit of a garden overview because I've got that question a couple of times. We do have a couple of berry bushes along the side of the house and like some other things that have been kind of fun to just try out. But like, grow what you're going to eat, and like wherever you are. If like you're in an apartment, you can grow something in a box.
Yeah.
You don't need even a yard.
Yep.
So a lot of this stuff I think is a lot more accessible than people tend to make it because they see just like with anything, just like with freaking fitness, dude. Everybody sees the guys that are snatching 400 pounds,
Hmm.
in Olympic meets. And they're like, well, I can't even do that above my head. I'm like, well,
Right.
you're not him.
Yeah.
Like you're not
Exactly.
him. Like just start with where you are.
Yeah.
So if you've got anything in like more of the home defense or some prep kind of stuff or vehicle kind of things that maybe we did or didn't touch on or want to reiterate, I kind of wanted to have a couple minutes for that.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a couple things that I've done. One, learning. I mean, I grew up watching my grandmother pickle and can. Um,
Yeah.
and I think just as an extension, if you're going to have a garden, you're going to have resources uh, to keep these things ahead of when you're growing them. So pickling, canning, learning to can meats. One of the finest meals I've ever had is a canned chicken. It sounds kind of odd, but it's just freaking delicious. And
I
I've
have
had
never heard
some.
of canned chicken before.
I've had canned elk. I've had canned bison, and those things are really just amazing. Like reconstitute them, get kind of a roast gravy going thing, put them on some
Yeah.
rice, put them on some potatoes, open face sandwich, whatever. Just phenomenal. And they're kind of a shredded texture as well. So
Yeah.
just really, really good. I think that is a skill, not only from a pleasure, like going, even if you just go to the store and buy some vegetables, fooling around with your food in that way and kind of having your own hand in making it something more than what it is as it is, I think is always exciting. And one of the simplest things you can do, it's one of my favorites, taco night, get some red onion, slice it up pretty thin or what to your liking. And literally you can go to the store and there's a jar, and I think it's Heinz, and oops, whoops, hit my mic. It says pickling vinegar, and it's already constituted with the right amount of salt, right amount of vinegar, right about everything. Now, what I'll do is I'll add some peppercorns, I'll add some jalapeno, and that goes in. And literally within 48 hours to 72 hours, up to 2 weeks, you've got these amazing, ever evolving, deeper flavored pickled red onions. That's as simple as you can get. You can go all the way down to canning meat, which I would think would be the most delicate of all. So I would tell people to learn that. But from a car standpoint, I think everyone, number one, should have jumper cables or like a portable jumper box. Those little things that you can pre-charge that they have a built-in flashlight. There's a company called Halo. I have nothing to do with them. I've actually I've actually used this multiple times. It's fantastic. It's about the size of a cigar box, um, and you can charge your phone, you can start your car, you can have a flashlight on it. It's just very valuable. It's about $100. The other thing is a secondary battery stand. So my truck it had an open space above the engine, and I had another battery installed that is just a mute. Keep the caps on, the black and red caps on. So if I ever run out of a battery, Or like when my alternator went out and drained my battery, I was able to, at least not with the alternator situation, but a couple of times when my battery has gone bad, quickly convert to that, and then you just change it, and then it's back and forth. You just keep that one on and keep the caps on the other. That's a really good one. Road flares, something that people often overlook, but man, if you watch Instagram and if you know anything about how you use your own phone, people are distracted when they're driving. There was a police officer somewhere just nearly taken out by a kid driving 120 miles an hour, jumped the median and nearly took him out. So from a standpoint of your visibility and survivability, flares in the back of the truck are awesome. They can come in handy, like especially if you were to go off in a ditch, you can shoot a flare up. And I'm sure if you wait for a car, but if a truck driver sees it, they're going to make mention of it. Like they're really good about that stuff because they are always on the lookout for off the road passengers. And I know that my grandfather was the truck driver. So that's just another area that is very important to me for myself because I'm always on the road. My truck has 415,000 miles on it, so it's like prone to break down at some point, even as reliable as it's been. Um, Another thing I would say is I always have a Kydex carry for my pistol, but I would have a separate carry holster for your vehicle, one that is permanently mounted. And when you get in your vehicle, I mean, I don't know who you are if you enjoy riding with an Apex carry or a hip carry in your vehicle. I mean, I get if you're just a quick drive, but it's not necessarily always comfortable. Just unhook the Kydex from your belt, slip that pistol into the one in your vehicle. I have one that's right beside my seat, and then I also had one in my old truck that was a forward position near the steering wheel. And it's listen, I don't give a fuck who you are, man. This I'm a big, scary, intimidating looking guy to most. I don't intimidate a gun. And what happens when somebody is holding a gun is they get fearless. So I just always feel like personal protection. That's why I go to jujitsu. It's personal protection without a weapon. I'm trying to be more proficient with a knife, trying to be more proficient with a pistol,
Yep.
trying to be more proficient with a rifle. So that's the other part of the equation. Your training. Do not, just like Greg's post, one of my favorites, the tiger inside. Do not imagine that you are going to see red and automatically know what to do. I can promise you, go to one jujitsu class and let somebody just work on you and you try as hard as you can. I don't
Yeah.
care how big you are. One class, a martial action will trump instinct every single time. Somebody that knows what they're doing, how to put their hands on you, how to move your body, how to
Yes.
manipulate their feet to get you off balance. Those things are not instinctive. They are not. I don't care how much you think they are. They are not. One class of BJJ would change every couch potato talking shit about what somebody should do in a UFC ring forever. Like one class and you'll shut your mouth. So if that's
Right.
true of the physical body, it is going to be true of extensions of the physical body, whether that's pistol, knife, bare knuckles, or I mean brass knuckles, whatever it is. Learn your weapon, practice with your weapon, and get those repetitions in so that when it is, it's time for something to go down, you are more prepared for that. And I'm not saying that as a badass. I'm saying that as somebody that truly believes that training is the epitome and should be at some level a requirement of ownership of all these things. So that would be mine for that. Just a couple quick ones.
Totally. Solid. Yeah, and that actually leads into kind of the last thing, because but we're
Perfect.
both in. We talked about some jujitsu on one of the recent episodes that were both kind of real. And I have a competition that is Saturday, yeah, as of this recording,
Yep.
so this coming Saturday, July 29th. It's a grappling industries tournament. I'm undecided if I'm going to do no gi yet. I think I might, just because why not.
Right.
But so I've 12 weeks, and so you and I were talking about laying out a little bit of a template uh,
Mm-hmm.
for my training. So and then some currently I'm sitting this morning I was 198.5,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna cut to 185 to compete at 185s.
Yep.
And because I did one competition where I didn't cut and just rolled in with was that day, and just because I'm not trying to do anything
Sure.
this one uh, for a team aspect, because we're rolling into one with like a few dozen people, into the
Mm-hmm.
team. And so trying to, match, we don't want to have five guys belt in my division at the 205 weight class and one guy at 185 or no guys at
Right.
185. So we're trying to spread stuff out a little bit so we've got a good spot in every weight class in every division. I am ecstatic that I'm a master now. So 30 plus I
Yeah.
division instead of having to roll against all the spry 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds. There's stuff going on here today, man. You got to
Shit's
go against
popping.
18-year-olds that are like just athletic freaks at, even if they're at blue belt, they're just monsters.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
30 plus. I'm gonna do 30 plus at blue and
Mm-hmm.
just have fun with it. But I'm diving back into training. I'm gonna be at my goal is four jiu-jitsu classes a week, and that includes the one comp class that we have. And then I'm training anywhere from 4 to 6 times via either weights or I'm going to pepper in a couple of longer distance, get some runs in, and do that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I've a little template laid out. I'm going to do a better job of documenting all of it because again, it's been some questions about how I'm going to prepare for it, but also I just want to document all of it myself.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, so that's
That's a
that's the
good
plan is
idea.
to drop. So I'll need another, and I'd like to be able to get down to like 80. If I can be at 87 or 88, like at the beginning of the week of that, I can water cut a few pounds off to make weight and then be fine after that. Because I think on
Yeah.
that one I can actually weigh in the night before, so it'll be a good setup as far as that's concerned. My rough
I think I lost you for just a second. I lost you for 1 second. We're good though.
Oh, are we back?
Yeah, we're back.
Oh, okay.
So,
So yeah,
so
that's
from
where I am. If you've got where,
yeah, so I'd looked at a couple competitions that are coming up throughout the summer. I haven't full on decided which ones I'm going to choose. I'm actually just looking for some things to really test myself in a different, well, in a couple different rule sets. I'd like an EBI type setup, which has submission start kind of overtime rounds, as well as I would like to do something with an ADCC rule set with wrestling as a mandatory takedown instead of sitting to guard. So those are cool ideas. There's a Fuji event. There's a couple other events that are just scattered throughout the summer and around. But I am probably in that, honestly, 6 to 10,
yep,
12 weeks. But really, I've been kind of conditioning myself since January, and like having a sense of what I've done in the past of doing things as quickly as I can, and that leading to good results, but also crash and burn type results. I decided to start in January and go just
yep,
methodically slower. So I was 243. My typical workout right now, Wolf Brigade is the base of my training outside of this very specific period.
yep,
And that is only because I fall back to a cube type method that I have structured as follows. So I rotate my intensities. If I do anything heavy on a body part, the next time I do it will be very
hmm,
fast, very lightweight. The third week, it rotates around to a moderate effort, 6 to 8 reps, 5 to 6 sets. And it's an intensity rotation that works for me. If my upper body is heavy that day, my lower body is light. If my carry is heavy, my drag is light. If my carry is light, my drag is heavy. So I structure my stuff like this. I do an upper body push, I do an upper body pull. I do a lower body push. I do a lower body pull. And then I do carries and I do holds. So I sometimes that is combined as a farmer's carry or a Zercher carry with a sandbag or something like that. But I typically like to work grip specific stuff like hanging from the bar,
yep,
getting super heavy dumbbells for time, odd grips with the sandbag to where I'm like gripping the actual bag and not a hoop. Just really working the fingers and hands to death. And then from there I do some kind of conditioning effect. So I'm doing that 4 days a week. I'm doing jiu-jitsu 4 days a week with 5 to 6 classes a week if I can make doubles. learning to slow myself down and not view every roll as like life or death has really helped my body rejuvenate, feel really good. I'm down from 243 in January to I was 219 this morning, and feeling really, really good. The goal now is that we've stripped some body fat off. We got the conditioning, the metabolism functioning, is to just slowly start layering in some calories to just try to creep my way back up to a really solid 225, 227 over the next couple 3 months. That may sound extreme, but I'm on a baseline TRT, nothing fancy here. I'm eating game meat, beef, chicken, rice, vegetables, fruit. And the reason that it's a bit easier for me is I have to train a very specific way or I start growing because of my body's acclimation to being so big for so long.
Yeah.
That's why I don't do the big three compounds as main movers, because if I start squatting, benching, and deadlifting, my body changes in ways that I don't necessarily want or desire at 41 years old. Not that I don't want more muscle,
And
but
quickly
you know,
too.
yeah, it happens really fast for me. One, because I have the resources as far as I have the time, I have the drive, I have the money to buy my food, to stay on the TRT and have a great doctor that really gives a shit about me and points me in the right direction. To touch on that briefly, I am doing testosterone cypionate at 200 milligrams a week. I'm doing an anastrozole as needed, and then I'm doing HCG as just a round out to the hormone triumvirate there. But nothing else beyond that, other than I'm using First Form supplements.
Yeah.
I've got a great relationship with those guys, and everything else, like I said, is game meat, beef, bison, chicken, fish as alternatives, eggs, as many as I can stand. So, and I love them, but just as many as I can stand. But that's really my
Yeah.
thing is just want to keep pushing the rounds for technique and then following those rounds up like 2 rounds for technique position work. The next round is try to implement an open roll. And I'm really proud of myself. I don't usually say that, but anybody that rolls knows how hard this is. And for me, it wasn't hard because of conditioning. It was hard because of my pacing. I would go so hard in the beginning that I'd phase out. And for me to do a 20-minute round with my buddy this morning, um, we weren't going balls out. We weren't trying to kill each other, but it was like respect of each other's position, acknowledge the position, let somebody work to their point, and then, okay, kind of give each other a head nod, get a reversal and start working from the reversal, and it was just like,
Yep.
it was like, man, I really feel like I'm doing jujitsu now. Like, and that's such a strange thing to say this far into it for me, but for so long it felt like I was literally in a
Yeah.
fight, like I would just
Get
go
it.
so hard that it was a fight. And now it's like, no, I'm really doing jujitsu now. This is what jujitsu is. So I'm just trying to keep the train rolling, keep doing the things that I'm doing in that structure of workout that I talked about. Diet, I just rotate my calories based on need. I do a little more carbs when I train harder. I do a few little less carbs when I don't. Tyler Minton gave me a great protein suggestion that I don't want to share because it may be private information of his, but it was just adjusting when and how much of the protein I was taking. So um, check him out just as a shout out to him. He'll probably post it if he hasn't, but it's probably in there somewhere because he's very thorough and he's worked with fighters. He's worked with
Yeah.
everybody under the sun. So Tyler Minton, I really appreciate you, bud.
He's awesome. Sweet. We'll wrap it there for our short hour long, I guess.
Yeah, no
Pretty right on
doubt.
with time wise, like we always are, I guess.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Cool,
That was
man.
fun
Well,
though.
we'll get this up soon, and we'll do another one. Yeah, we'll do more of these, like the kind of rapid fire ones. These are fun.
Yep. All right. Appreciate you, Ross. And thank you guys for the questions the last time again and listening.
Yeah,
So appreciate you all.
yeah. Awesome. Thanks, guys.